Life in the Virginia colony during the 17th century was marked by hardship, struggle, and constant adaptation to new challenges and unrest. The colony was ruled by an elite group of wealthy planters who held significant influence over the colony's direction. These planters controlled the best land and held most of the political power, making decisions that often favored their interests. At the bottom of this social order were indentured servants who worked tirelessly under harsh conditions. They were brought from Europe with the promise of land and freedom after a period of service, a promise that was rarely fulfilled. Many found their hopes dashed by the harsh realities of colonial life, facing exploitation and severe living conditions. Adding to the tensions, conflicts with Native American tribes on the frontier were frequent and bloody, creating a constant state of fear. Poorer colonists, including former indentured servants, often bore the brunt of these attacks, suffering great losses. They felt that the colonial government, dominated by wealthy planters, was indifferent to their plight and concerns. Resentment grew among the lower classes, setting the stage for a dramatic and inevitable uprising against the ruling elite. The labor system in early Virginia relied heavily on indentured servants from Europe. These men and women agreed to work for a set number of years in exchange for passage to the colonies. Upon completing their terms, they were promised land and their freedom. This system, however, was often exploitative. Servants endured harsh conditions, and many died before completing their contracts. Africans initially brought to Virginia in 1619 initially labored alongside indentured servants. Their status was less clear. Some were treated as indentured servants, while others were held in lifelong servitude. The distinction between servant and slave was still evolving. However, the growing demand for labor on tobacco plantations fueled the tragic shift towards the enslavement of Africans. In 1675, a minor dispute between colonists and the Doeg tribe escalated into a full-blown conflict, igniting tensions that had been simmering for years. Nathaniel Bacon, a wealthy and ambitious planter, emerged as a leader of the frustrated colonists, who were increasingly disillusioned with the colonial administration. Bacon, though part of the elite, tapped into the anger of the lower classes, who felt neglected and oppressed by the ruling authorities. He criticized the colony's governor, William Berkeley, for protecting the interests of the wealthy at the expense of the poor, and for failing to address the threat from Native Americans, which many colonists saw as a pressing issue. Bacon demanded the right to wage war against any Native American tribe, regardless of whether they posed a direct threat to the colonists, believing that preemptive action was necessary for their safety. Governor Berkeley saw this as reckless and a challenge to his authority, fearing that such actions would lead to further instability and violence. The conflict between Bacon and Berkeley quickly escalated from a disagreement over Indian policy into a power struggle that would plunge the colony into chaos, marking the beginning of a significant and turbulent chapter in colonial history. In 1676, Bacon defied Governor Berkeley's orders and led a militia against the Susquehannock tribe. Berkeley declared Bacon a rebel, but Bacon, with the support of many colonists, marched on Jamestown, the colonial capital. Bacon's forces burned Jamestown to the ground, forcing Berkeley to flee. Although Bacon died of dysentery a few months later, and the rebellion was eventually crushed by English forces, the rebellion had a profound impact on Virginia. It exposed the deep social and economic divisions within the colony. The rebellion also terrified the ruling elite, who feared a repeat of this uprising. Following the rebellion, the Virginia Assembly enacted a series of laws designed to consolidate power and prevent future uprisings. These laws included measures to appease the poor whites who had supported Bacon. Land was opened up for settlement in Western Virginia, and taxes were reduced. However, the most significant change was the hardening of racial lines in the colony's labor system. The Assembly passed laws that granted greater freedoms to white servants while simultaneously codifying the enslavement of Africans. This shift away from indentured servitude and towards racialized slavery was a direct response to Bacon's rebellion. The ruling elite saw a divided working class split along racial lines as easier to control. The roots of racism. The decision to transition to African slavery had devastating consequences for generations to come. It laid the groundwork for a system of racial hierarchy that would define American society for centuries. By creating a permanent underclass of enslaved Africans, the planter elite ensured the profitability of their plantations while also solidifying their own power. The justification for this system was rooted in racism. Africans were deemed inferior to Europeans and therefore deserving of enslavement. This ideology of white supremacy, reinforced by laws and social customs, permeated every aspect of colonial life. From servitude to slavery. The transformation from a society with slaves to a slave society was swift and brutal. Laws were passed that defined slaves as property, not people. They were denied basic human rights and subjected to unimaginable cruelty. The children of enslaved women inherited their mother's status, ensuring a permanent supply of forced labor. This shift in labor systems had a profound impact on the colony's development. It fueled the economic engine of Virginia, making it one of the wealthiest colonies in British North America. However, this wealth came at an immense human cost, paid for by the blood and sweat of generations of enslaved Africans. A legacy of inequality. The legacy of Bacon's rebellion and the subsequent entrenchment of slavery continues to cast a long shadow on American society. The racial divisions that were solidified during this period helped to create and sustain a system of systemic racism that persists to this day. The economic disparities between Black and white Americans, the mass incarceration of Black men, and the ongoing struggle for racial justice are all rooted in the decisions made in the wake of Bacon's rebellion. The rebellion serves as a stark reminder of the enduring power of racism and the urgent need to confront its legacy. Conclusion: the enduring impact. Bacon's rebellion was a significant turning point in American history, marking a moment of profound change and upheaval. It exposed the deep social and economic divisions within colonial society, highlighting the stark contrast between the wealthy elite and the struggling lower classes. This event led to the consolidation of power in the hands of the elite, further entrenching the existing social hierarchy. The rebellion also had a profound and tragic impact on the lives of Africans, who were relegated to a permanent underclass through the institution of slavery. This marked the beginning of a long and painful history of racial oppression and exploitation. The consequences of these decisions continue to resonate today, as the legacy of these historical injustices is still felt in modern society. The racial disparities that plague American society are a direct result of the choices made in the aftermath of Bacon's Rebellion. These decisions laid the groundwork for systemic racism that persists to this day. By understanding this history, we can begin to dismantle the systems of oppression that have been woven into the fabric of the nation. Education and awareness are crucial steps in this process. Only then can we hope to create a more just and equitable society for all, where every individual is valued and respected, regardless of their background or heritage.